Hello, I'm Kolasinski. I'm in the chemistry department of the Westchester University and also the chief scientific officer at Bram Nanotech. So I'd like to talk to you today about nanotechnology, the future of NNI, obviously, and meeting the world's biggest challenges, the tiniest objects. And so what I see is some of the biggest challenges, it's certainly identified by any number of groups, including the UN, energy storage and transformation, particularly with a low carbon footprint. With enough energy, we can do anything, right? Even slow down time. And with the implementation of nanotechnology, hopefully we can do this with earth abundant materials and using solar irradiation. Clean water and air, of course, are important. Sustainable agriculture, which is one of the most important implementations of nanotechnology, in that nanostructured iron catalysts are used to generate ammonia, which is used for fertilizer, and half the world's population gets fed by the abundance provided by that fertilizer. Good health. It's something that's affecting us right now, right? Not only future threats such as antibiotic resistance, but drug delivery, which we're seeing nanotechnology impacting that right now with the COVID vaccines. And also something I think that's very important for the NNI moving forward is quality education. And from that, I mean that in a very holistic sense, the generation and transformation of good ideas into solutions. So what has the NNI done in this realm already? And certainly they've done a lot in this area up to now. And moving forward, they should continue with things such as nanotechnology signature initiatives. I think that's an important thing that has been done and should continue. Identify these areas, bring attention to them, show the progress that's made through nanotechnology, and continue to inform us of things that need to be done in the future. So I would continue those activities. Nanotechnology requires a lot of infrastructure. And again, the NNI has been instrumental in getting this building up of infrastructure, as we see here through the National Nanotechnology Coordinated Infrastructure. Now, the thing is, if you look at these 16 NNCIs, you will find one HBCU represented as a partner institution. You'll find 2 community colleges. That's actually pretty good. No tribal institutions. And there's one PUI. That one PUI has 2,000 students just about and costs over $70,000 a year. So if we're going to address getting infrastructure into a more diverse workforce, and included in that are not only underrepresented groups, but I would like to include in that first generation undergraduate students. We need to get to a wider range of institutions on this list if we're really going to bring top flight infrastructure into a broader workforce and get those people to really be partners and not just some representation that happened along the way. So infrastructure is indeed really important in nanotechnology, and some of it is incredibly instrumentation dependent and investment dependent and heavy onto that. There's the big science, right? And as integrated circuit manufacturer, which again is another very large economic impact of nanotechnology, moves toward the 7 and the 5 nanometer nodes and implements new types of lithography, that's an incredibly expensive area of infrastructure development, right? The processing of a single 300 millimeter wafer is expected to cost over around $17,000 per wafer at the 5 nanometer node, right? And that already over $9 billion has been invested in the construction of a single fab and kitting it out with all the appropriate instrumentation. Now, in a business sense, having a high barrier to entry can be a very effective strategy, right? It keeps out competition. It keeps your business profitable. But in science, that can be very deleterious, right? It can be dangerous to innovative science because we have to make sure that science doesn't become conservative, that you can go out and follow your outlandish idea to find something really new. And one of the great democratizing aspects of nanotechnology is indeed that not all nanotech requires $1 billion fab, right? a lot of nanotechnology relies on self-limiting chemistry, on self-assembly. And this can be done at the benchtop. And to me, that's really important that we make sure that we have a strong presence in benchtop chemistry as well, because the ability to do things on a laboratory scale helps us to stay grounded in responsible development of our technologies. But also, it makes the science more accessible. And if our science is more accessible, then that promotes the development of diverse ideas, right? Allows us to go through that sort of genetic algorithm of trying all kinds of paths if there is a low barrier to entry. But also it helps us to generate a more diverse workforce, a more diverse set of researchers, because we don't want all of our science to have a high barrier to entry. And sometimes it can be really as simple as this. Here, a quick little video. We'll take a silicon single crystal, stick it in a hydrofluoric acid solution where we've dissolved some vanadium pentoxide, and boom, you can see the colors changing. The colors are changing there not because we're changing the chemical composition of this material, but simply because we're making it nanostructured porous silicon, a quantum confined material that exhibits visible photoluminescence. There you have it, self-limiting chemistry happening on a lab benchtop with a low barrier to entry. We need to support that kind of research too. Self-assembly, of course, is very topical, very important right now with these lipid nanoparticles formed through self-assembly that are indeed a major delivery method for messenger RNA vaccines, such as the 2 approved vaccines that are going to help us fight COVID-19. So moving forward, where do I see the NNI going? What should it address? Well, one is it needs to stay focused on these big challenges. Specifically in materials and chemistry, I see one of those big challenges as being the development and scaling of this self-limiting chemistry. The NNI should help ensure broad access to high-end facilities. Yes, we need those high heavy capital instrumentation, but we need broad access to that as well. We have to work toward that. Specifically in materials and chemistry, I see one of the things that should work toward is, every self-respecting chemistry department has an NMR. Every self-respecting chemistry department should have an SEM as well. Structure should be as important as composition. We need to drive that home to the chemical and materials community. We need to seed innovation through collaborations, both getting people into those high-end facilities and also with small groups, right? We need to avoid ossification and over-reliance on big science, which gets too conservative. We need to break down silos between disciplines and between institutions, and the NNI should work toward that. It should spread the message through communication and mobility of workers, getting them to move between these communities, really important, right? Sometimes, again, the structure is the product. And the way that the NNI is structured helps get its product delivered, which is advances in nanotechnology. And I think one of the ways it can do this is to connect with addressing humanity's greatest challenges. Scientifically, the frontiers I really see as a recognition that nanomaterials, we know, quantum confinement is important. Surface properties overtaking bulk properties, but also I think there's a growing recognition of the importance of the electric double layer and the field generated from that as that becomes appreciable in these nanoscale objects as well. Self-limiting and self-replicating chemistry are behind a number of applications in just pie in the sky fields, from synthetic biology to scaling up nanomaterials and production of those, drug delivery as we see. In energy applications, really controlling charge separation and charge transfer is extremely important in the artificial leaves, photovoltaics, energy storage, batteries. Right? And behind all of this for a real economic transfer of nanoscience into nanotechnology is really scaling up nanoscale reactors, right? Whether that's heterogeneous catalysis, artificial enzymes, or chemistry in droplets. So those are my areas of emphasis, and I hope you found that informative.